Good evening and welcome to the Milton School Committee School Choice Open Hearing on May 16, 2017. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. So this is our annual school choice open hearing where we hear from the superintendent and her recommendation as to whether or not we should be a school choice system. We have not been a school choice system in the past. And at this point, I will turn the presentation over to the superintendent.
Thank you, Chairman Donahue. We just have a brief slide presentation, and I apologize for reading to you, but for the viewing public. Just to explain what school choice is, probably once a month we get an call in the office, we a school choice district. So inter-district school choice, Chapter 76, Section 12B of the Massachusetts General Laws, and I'm doing this for the viewing public, details the terms and conditions of the inter-district school choice. The Milton School Committee has a policy JFBB, regarding school choice, and that policy is in your packet tonight. It will also be posted online tomorrow with this presentation. How does inter-district school choice work? The inter-district school choice program allows for a parent or guardian to enroll his or her child in a school district that is not the child's home school district. Prior to declaring themselves a school choice district with the state, the school district would determine how many seats were available to be offered and at what grades would be available. Each year, the Milton School Committee must vote on whether or not to participate in the school choice program. This vote must be submitted to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education prior to June 1st, 2018. If the Milton School Committee voted tonight to participate in school choice, a student enrolled in the Milton Public Schools through this program would have the right to remain in the school district until graduation. Historically, as Chairman Donahue said, the Milton School Committee has voted not to participate in inter-district school choice. So you'll take a vote tonight, and historically we have voted not to participate in the school choice program. An example would be a district might determine a particular grade level, open seats they have, and then individuals from outside the district, parents, submit their name, and there's a lottery. And if a child is admitted at the second grade or kindergarten, they have the rights and benefits to stay. They must stay through graduation. We have never been in the situation in the Milton Public Schools that we have that many open seats that we would participate in school choice. I would tell you my experience with school choice, it is more in the western part of the state, where they might have some enrollment issues. They participate in school choice. So what happens, you vote tonight, and we let Desi know the results of your vote. We have also put in your packet, and I'd be glad to post all of this tomorrow for the viewing public, all of the communities and whether or not for the last 2 years they've participated in school choice, and a publication from Desi further explaining inter-district school choice program. But it's important for the viewing public to understand it because, as I said, we receive at least one call a month from parents and guardians in neighboring communities. Might they enroll their child in the Milton Public Schools? We explain that you have to live in the town of Milton, and then they follow up with, are you a school choice district? So my recommendation is that we don't have open seats and we have enrollment issues, so to vote against being a school choice district.
All right. Thank you, Superintendent. Is there anybody from the public here this evening who'd like to comment on school choice? No. Any colleagues this time? Okay. So we'll take this up in our regular meeting, but this is our open public hearing. So.
Great.
All right. So with that, I'll move to adjourn our open public hearing. Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Unanimous? All right, so we are adjourned from our open public hearing. Thank you. And we're going to call to order our regular school committee meeting for May 16, 2018. And in terms of agenda changes, I have a handful, so bear with me. Under the superintendent report, we're going to remove the 5-year curriculum purchase item, so that's superintendent report item B. We'll get to that at our next meeting. Under chair report, we're going to add a C, summer retreat conversation. We're going to add a D, Wilson Kindleton School update. Under finance subcommittee, we're going to remove item A, approval of vendor warrant. And under policy, we're going to remove second reading of GCF. So that's policy B.
Can I also,
Yes.
I think we should strike transportation, and I'll have that at the next meeting, because we haven't had our May meeting yet, so I
All
really
right.
don't have any
Good.
updates, so, but I will definitely at the next meeting.
So,
Okay.
all right.
We have that
Excellent.
Monday, this at the 20th, this upcoming Monday.
Yes.
So it'll be the first, and we only met, I already reported that we met very briefly before, in April, before town meeting, yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Any other changes? All right. Anyone here for citizen speak? No? All right. Superintendent, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman
again.
Donahue. I'd like to invite to the table to join us our Milton Public Schools head nurse and Milton High School nurse, Margaret Gibbons.
I brought a folder for
I know.
everybody so that
Thank you.
I didn't have to do a PowerPoint presentation.
Gracias.
Thank you very much.
More time.
Thank you, Margaret. So the school committee had asked for an update on SBIRT when it had been completed in the Milton Public Schools, and I'm proud to have Margaret here tonight. Margaret, you'll explain the mechanism and the programming.
Thank you.
Is that on for you?
I don't, is that on?
It's probably home for, yeah.
They'll come out and tell you if they
I
can't
want to
hear
thank
you.
you for giving me the opportunity to report on this. It's our first this is our initial voyage on doing SBIRT with our 7th and 9th graders. SBIRT meaning survey, screening, brief, interview, refer for treatment. And it's a mandated, although unfunded, from the Department of Public Health and DESE and the state legislature to do these screenings on at least a middle school grade and a high school grade of our choosing. The journey started actually over a year ago when we realized this was heading our way. We were lucky enough to have quite a large meeting last July in the superintendent's conference room. We invited representatives from the Department of Public Health out to Milton. I invited the two principals that would be involved, the director of guidance, and also of adjustment counselors, all the nurses that were available, and others that I thought would be. My goal was to get as many people knowledgeable, buying in, and supporting a project of this magnitude, because it was actually a good strategy in retrospect, and not at the time. I was just lucky, but it really paid off in the end to have so many people understand what we were doing, why we were doing it, and getting their support for the process. Here at the high school, Mr. Jett and I drafted a joint letter to send out in the beginning of the year, and then again right before we were doing it. They used a similar letter at the Pierce. But in the letter, James was crafty and smart and skilled in his way, where he put in to also, while we were collecting this data, which in your packet you'll see the questions that were asked. While we were collecting the questions, we also wanted to know why kids would make good choices, or maybe why they would make bad choices. So that was also part of our goal, to get not just the answers to the questions, but to find out how kids responded in certain situations. So at the spin-out of that July meeting, we got our own private training session here at Milton High in August. And once again, I over-invited. So we had coaches, all the guidance counselors, PE and health teachers, principals, vice principals, and anybody who was around in the building that day. We invited to the training. And it was quite successful. It was a lengthy training. It was almost 4 hours. Went over how the training is done, why it's done, the outcomes. There were examples in the training, model video, and it talked about motivational interviewing. And so everybody came away with a new skill set that I certainly gained from. So in that venue, we really talked about who would actually, nobody really decided who was going to do the actual interviewing at that point. I knew where it was going to fall, but I wanted to see how that would go. And asked in the room before we broke up who would like to do it. Nobody raised their hand. So DPH had suggested that nurses, based on their confidentiality especially, that they're known to have, which their license they must keep. And that was a big piece with Department of Public Health, the punctuality. And I put it on the bottom of the one sheet that this information that the students, as young as 7th grade students, this information cannot be identifiable to a student. And it's a very interesting concept. It's safe under a different law than we're used to using in a school setting. And you have to have written consent, even from a 13 or 14-year-old, to be able to share that information, even with a parent. And that's a spin-off that we're not familiar with. We like sharing with parents, we like sharing with people. So to do that, we really had to kind of change how we thought about this and really respect that this was confidential, and what these kids were telling us, we needed to reassure them. So when you look in the questions and across the top, you'll see that you tell them to be honest and you tell them that it's confidential. So I decided that wasn't enough. And so I asked them, and I had the staff, the nurses that were doing it, I asked them to ask the students for them to tell us what confidential meant to them. What did confidential mean to you? So I would say, okay, Margaret, I'm glad you're here this morning. We're going to talk over these questions. I have, your answers will be kept confidential. Do you know what that, tell me what you think that means. You'd be surprised that many students don't know. They think it means answering confidently. They don't understand that what it really means. So I would explain to them, and the others would as well, that we were keeping their questions between us. And that seemed to make the students relax more, and really, I only felt I was Zoomed a couple of times. And when I think that's really awesome when we screened close to well over 500, close to 600 students. So it really gave me the confidence to move forward, that this was I wasn't sold on it initially, and neither were the other nurses. As we progressed through the process, we began to see more and more validity and why it was a good tool and why we think it's going to work. And the good news, and I can't give you the exact data because we have to report it to DPH, and we're in the process of doing that, but when that's all crafted, I will. At the high school, we only had 3 students opt out of the screening out of 270 students. At the Pierce, we only had 8 students opt out of 303 students. So I told that to James one morning. I said I was really hoping for like 50 or 60 to opt out. And he laughed and he said, no, they have confidence in you. But I think that's wrong. It may be a little factor, but I think what's happened over the last couple of years, and kudos to the coalition, and kudos to educating the community, I think the community has understood that we are trying to help and work together. And this was a tool that was going to help that process. It was confidential, we were gathering data that was going to be useful going forward, and it was going to give us, a beginning mark on where our middle school and high school freshmen were really starting out on this very difficult world of adolescence. So I think that's more the key, that the community really was supporting of anything that was going to be done to prevent their child or help their child in any way in this topic. And it's drugs and alcohol, and we tell them that as we sit down. So you can see the questions. There's no bars, nothing's held back. And if the student answers 0 to none up to the first topic, the only question you ask then is the car question, have you gotten in a car with someone who was high? And you're really going to be very happy with the results, with the data we're collecting. You will be pleasantly surprised. So to James's idea about getting strategies back, we would end our screening, and that's why it took us a little bit longer than probably others. We would end our screening and I would say, Mary, you're making really good choices. That's really terrific. Why do you make such good choices? What is it that motivates you, or why do you make good choices? So I didn't put it in your packet because of confidentiality, but I'm going to read you some that I'm going to make, gender-free if I can. And here, you're going to just really, a couple of times I just was so impressed. When they left, I thought I had a tear in my eye. Some of them are the typical ones. It's illegal. It would be illegal. It will be legal eventually, and am fine with waiting. One said, my father's a cop, and I know all about this stuff. And I said, okay. Our family culture is to avoid those things, so I avoid them. One very poignant child said, people in my family have used drugs and died. And one said, keeping my goals in mind, I don't think I will meet them if I use alcohol or drugs. Excellent. I have a goal to be an engineer and nothing is going to get in my way. This one was one that I personally like because it was said to me, and the student said, Mrs. Gibbons, you know my mother. She can smell a lie. So, and they went on. Some of it was for religious reasons. There is one question about if you drink or have more than a few sips of beer, wine, or any drink containing alcohol. And if a child says yes, when you finish the screening, you're supposed to go back and ask under what circumstances did that happen. So that happened to me a couple of times, and I went back and I said, now tell me about this time that you had some alcohol. Well, one was his bar mitzvah. One was a wedding celebration, and the student was in the wedding. And it was very monitored, and there was nothing that was, going down the wrong path. So you get to go back and find that out of that. One common theme, two common themes. Kids do listen in class and to their parents. Many children talked about their health classes. Many students at the Pierce and at the high school. Specifically, I won't embarrass Mr. Mazzulli, but they spoke about how they listened to his classes and how relevant he made it to them. They also impressed upon me that they talk to their parents. And so they don't have to do it every day. I said, well, when do you talk to your parents? Well, when I first came to the high school, I said, so that was a long time ago because this is February. We talked about it when they came. And I would preface asking them these questions by saying, you're in high school now, you've got a lot of friends, your parents aren't around, all these temptations. Hey, my mother and father are out tonight, you want to come over? Like, I'm really probative because I want to understand why they would do some things some way and why other kids don't. And a lot of it came down to who they listened to, whether it was at home or in school, the friends they had, and some underlying little things where they've seen things either outside the home or inside the home that are still lingering with them. The thoughts of it are still lingering with them, and they had an impact. And although they may not share that with their friends, they did share it with the nurses that talked to them. And kudos. 4 nurses did the bulk well, they did all the screening. We weren't all 4 every time. And it was Pam Noonan, who we put at the Pierce last year, Mary Jane Wash, who we've had for many years, luckily, supporting our programs, Barbara Perry at the Pierce, and myself. And at the end of it, we all felt it was something truly, we gained knowledge about the students that we interact with each day. it gave us an ability to actually investigate comments that kids said to us in other settings. We learned about the motivational interviewing. And it also gave us a really good sense about where these kids are in the community, and trust me, they are in a good place. I can't end by not thanking, I could not have done it here at the high school without the support of the guidance department, because they gave up their guidance suite for us to have individual offices. And the 7th grade teachers down at the Pierce gave up their classrooms for us, so we had our private, we did it truly. These kids were in a private setting, felt safe, no one around. And even though they don't know me, or they don't know Mrs. Walsh, when we identified ourselves as friends of Mrs. Perry, Mrs. Noonan, we work at the high school, you'll see us in another little over a year. They seemed very comfortable and truly gave honest answers. And I just really have to commend the teachers and the parents and all the efforts we've put in. The no funding piece, I did write a grant for the DA's office, and we did get some funding. And so that, I know I didn't want to end that your funding was taken away. No, we did get some funding for the subs that we needed to replace the nurses while they were doing this.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Member Varela.
Yeah, this was great, Margaret, thank you. So I have a couple of questions. I find this really interesting. So my question is, I know that you spoke, when you had the students, that this letter went out to the parents. I guess one of my questions is, when you talked about the opting out, was it the student that opted out number-wise, or the parents, or is that both? Were there any parents that said, I don't want you, for the opt-out, like I don't want my 7th grader to go through this?
There was an opt-out form that went home to parents to opt out. But the student could opt out as well.
As well.
Yes, and we asked them that, are you comfortable proceeding, do you want to do
So
this?
for the opting out, was it the ones that the numbers that you presented, were they just student-based, or was it student and parent combined?
It was parent-based.
Oh, it was parent-based. Okay, that's good to know. Then I wanted to know, so when you spoke with them and said that it's confidential, and you explained what that was, but on the page here with the scoring, like if you did unfortunately come across somebody who, answered yes to quite a few of the things, did you explain to the students that they could be referred, or were they aware of that and all that? Okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
they're still willing to.
It's a student who reported that they had done answered any of those questions. When you're finished, you go back and you really, as I say, you try to understand what the situations were. And if in fact you do feel there's something that's at risk, well, first you ask them, how long ago did you do it? So if it's 6 months before or 8 months before and they haven't done it since, the level goes down. If it was last week, that's a different story. And then we'll ask them, would you like to talk to someone about it? It doesn't have to be today. And then the student can say yes or no. If they say no, I say, well, you may say no today. We script this out, the nurses, before we go on, so we anticipate these issues. Okay, so you say no today. However, next week, I may find you and ask you again, and if you change your mind, you know where to find us. Or you don't let it end just because a child in that moment says no. There's a responsibility to really offer multiple times to, even if they continue to reject the offer, it's still telling them somebody cares and somebody is connecting and somebody is willing to listen. So there's the energy, the post-op energy, so to speak, that follows. That's what was concerning of mine, how that we would keep track if there were multiple children, but it didn't turn out to be so. We were very lucky.
And when you said that we would be pleasantly surprised, I was wondering, based on the youth risk survey that we had allowed to have done, and that the Milton Substance Abuse Coalition has presented, to our our town and our parent body and the student body, where, definitely was reviewing that presentation a couple of times. There's incidences of, binge drinking and the high end of that. Did the findings in this survey confirm those, or were you more pleasantly surprised to see that that wasn't?
No, and I was trying to think back. In fact, Chris Potts and I were just talking about that before he left. I'm trying to remember what year that survey is from. I thought it was...
It's a while now.
I feel like it's at least 2 years, at least two, maybe 3 years old.
I thought it was
It's-
2014.
Yeah, because
Yes.
Kristen was still on the
Yeah.
board.
And so here we are in 2018. There's been a lot of energy and a lot of education and a lot of discussion. I'm not sure we talked about this as a community when those 2014 kids were in 7th grade or when they were in 9th grade, because that's a 10th grade survey. So I'm, if we did another youth risk survey today, I think you would find that there would be still some of that,
Right.
but it would not be to the extent that we were so concerned about. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't stop.
Right.
That doesn't mean we shouldn't do anything but continue what we're doing, because it's a cumulative process to get a community to recognize and to deal with and to support each other, parents, because it's really easy. Oh, well, Mrs. Rella lets Grace do that,
Yeah.
and Mrs.
Yeah.
Everhart lets Timmy do that.
Yeah.
Ms. Craighead must be mean.
Yeah,
It-
yeah,
That's what the kids put parents through.
right,
I have 3 sons, I know.
right, yeah,
And so we need to keep doing what we're doing and better and better and better.
yeah.
And we need to keep supporting our health classes because it clearly impacted kids across the board. We also heard that they were impacted by some of the presentations that they came to.
That's good to hear.
Again, sometimes people say one-shot deals don't work. Well, they did work with a few of our students, and as far as I'm concerned, it's a success if one student comes away with a skill that says, not for me.
Well, I'm glad to hear about the health classes, because I have to say that having a 9th grader and a senior, and when I was at Pierce as under leadership, and when health first came into being all year long under Dr. Spalding, and we had health information nights for the parents about what was covered in curriculum, I have to say, so that was probably gone 5 years ago when that was happening. I was quite, many of us were quite, I think, a little shocked, just because it wasn't that way when we were in school. But, the depth of the honesty of, the drug and alcohol and, that's presented to them. And I have to say that in speaking with my children, a lot of times they'd be like, Mom, I know, we covered it in health. I know, I've learned it in health. So I'm just surprised, and I was at first surprised, but now grateful at the depth of coverage that our health programs give the students, and how important it is that they get it, because not every parent might talk about it, or it's sometimes when they've already discussed it in class, it can be a bridge with parents speaking about it. I don't know, but it's nice to hear that reinforced, that the education, like the honest education, realistic education, is making an impact on them.
We debriefed after every session, and which is what part of our training tells us to do, and we talked about all of that. Every one of us had kids talking about their health classes.
Yeah.
Not just me,
Yeah,
not just Mary.
that's great.
Every one of the nurses reported back that kids referenced their understanding about the impact of alcohol and drugs on their brain, on their bodies. They went into systems when they would respond to me like that, and I was absolutely overwhelmed, pleasingly overwhelmed with how they sucked it in. It was a sponge. So it's a good age to target. So we hit the home run there on that 7th grade. And my challenge with every student that I saw was, and I did 7th grade, I said, well, you're almost in 8th grade now, and 8th grade's a really pressure year, a lot of pressure on you to be there on the big gun. But when you get up to the high school, I'm gonna ask you these questions again, and I want the same answers. Now, I know I was maybe not telling the truth about being me asking the questions, but I wanted them to understand that we weren't going away, that we're gonna check in with you again in 9th grade and make sure you're doing all these good things and making all these good choices and really taking care of yourself. It's all about that. It's getting them, I used to think, and I would tell Ms. Gormley this years ago, I used to think getting a student out of the high school wearing a seatbelt and not smoking, we were just awesome. Now with all that's gone on and all that they're exposed to and all the dangers that are out there, this is like, consumes me in terms of trying to make kids realize a couple of mistakes can really just be tragic. To the point, where we showed the video, if I had known we're showing it to the seniors after their rehearsal this week, because so many of them didn't get a chance to see it the night we showed it. So, I think we've become more than just an academic institution. We are really part of their lives and how we can affect their future in so many more ways than just academically. And it's a gift that we have.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, I would just like to echo
Member
what she
Hart?
said, that, well, I know that it's a lot of coordination too, that, I have some friends that are in other districts that are school nurses, and I know that it takes a lot of coordination to organize it, to get the people subbing, and so thank you for all the support that the district gave you, and also just all the time that you all spent doing that. But the whole thing that you just said about the fact that students, it's that whole piece of that social emotional learning and that growth mindset, and the whole thing that we talk about, health and wellness,
Yeah,
that they
exactly.
have a face, that maybe if they get into trouble, if they're feeling stressed someday, they see your face or they see someone else's face and they remember that that was someone I talked to and they didn't judge me and they didn't say anything, and they can reach out and they know that that's available to them in a way that maybe wasn't when I was younger. And you didn't necessarily feel that comfortable at school talking about those kinds of things. Or even with your parents, or even parents feel
Right,
comfortable
right,
talking with each
exactly.
other and saying, I'm hearing this, what are you hearing? So I applaud the district for all the work they're doing around that.
It
And
was
the
not
health
it was not a
department.
singular person doing it. It was really the
Yeah,
coordination
it's
of
just
many,
amazing, yeah.
many people who,
Yeah.
who helped and were supportive of it. And, I probably missed telling you who half of them were, but it was
terrific. Yeah.
really terrific to.
I was
Super-
just going to say that
Superintendent.
this school committee was a force, not to patronize you, in wanting this done, if you remember. And I have to compliment Margaret Gibbons. When the funding didn't come from the sources that we were told it was going to come from, Margaret had written a grant. And to Margaret and each of the nurses, I think you understand, this was no small feat. Lining up substitutes, we watched Margaret come and go, those 2 grades, every single student, not a call from a parent, the dignity with which the school nurses approached these interviews, and the children. And Margaret, you became, if I might, converted about this survey. We'll share the data with the school committee at the appropriate time in the community, but it all comes from the top. And if you hadn't been committed to this school committee, before I knew what the acronym meant, started asking, was this survey going to be given? I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And to hear you tonight, and well said by the school committee, a different kind of interaction with the students.
Yeah.
We're housed near Margaret Gibbons' office, so we might as well be her assistants. We see that continual 1,000 high school students, but the way that they access, we'll be talking to Margaret in and, she never leaves her office. In and out of that office for high school is, Member Varela has spoken to your talents and the nursing services. I'm deeply appreciative. And the way you took on this and writing the grant for the funding on behalf of Milton Public Schools children, thank you. And to think you think it has a life now, that its impact is going to go further than the data results is
Yeah.
really very impactful.
Well, I love my job.
Yes, you do.
Thank you, everybody. Unless anybody has any more.
Member Varela, did you have anything you wanted to
Yeah,
add? or-
I did want to ask too, I'm sorry, this I just, It's really such an important thing that we're doing. About the funding, because I do remember being at the meeting, I don't know if it was health and wellness or policy
Yeah, we
or
were
whatever.
somewhere.
Finance. And so moving forward with regard to well, first of all, I want to ask, when you mentioned that it's a mandate, yet it's not going to be funded. So most districts across the Massachusetts should be quote unquote doing this, but they have to find the money to do it.
Yeah, some of them had gotten some money a year earlier. Natick did, they're scattered around. So they were the original models. And then there was supposed to be literally a line item in the legislature, and I was at one training where the Department of Ed woman spoke to this, and she said, and you will not be mandated to do it if there's no funding. Well, the funding didn't come, but the pressure kept coming to do it. And the line got a little gray, because when we had DPH out last July, and I asked that question in the meeting, I said, I don't see any funding yet. I'm not sure why we should be going forward. Well, there was a hem and a haw and a hem and a haw from DPH. Long story short, she said, we're planning that, we're expecting that it be done, and we'll figure out the funding later. That was kind of how she stalled me. Well, that doesn't help a school district that's trying to plan for a school year.
Right.
So and then that's why I think they actually came out in August and did an on-site training for us, because they wanted to keep the momentum going in Milton, because I was ready to shut it down, but then I felt uncomfortable doing that based on maybe a total of $3,000 around that. Because I think the gain is really,
huge.
you can't put a price tag on it. So District Attorney Morrissey, to his credit, put aside somewhere around $20,000, and schools could apply for it. And his staff really likes Milton. They really appreciate the work that Milton does. We host the roundtables here and all. So we were awarded $2,000 to cover our subs. I think it'll almost do it.
But I just hope, it's something that I think in finance or other areas that we as a district need to find that couple of thousand every year so that this can continue, because I'm especially interested to see, this is the first year we do it, so if we do 7th and 9th graders all the time, where will the 9th graders be? And, I just feel it would be awful to just say, well, we don't have 3,500 to do this. With the momentum that we've built in the community through the coalition and the schools and Students Against Destructive Decisions, all of that pushing forward, this is going to be key data that we use.
I
So
totally
we
agree
need to
with you,
keep it
Sheila,
funded.
that to get to see if we're
Yes.
trending right.
Yes.
One set of data doesn't tell us
Correct.
much.
So we
It
need to
tells us a
continue to do it.
snapshot.
Absolutely.
What we need is to see how that 7th grade and 9th grade look. And
Exactly.
honestly, I would love to see it done in the 11th grade.
Yeah.
I was
Because
yeah.
that would be, how that progressed, the 11th grade would be the key factor, because there's where kids are driving, there's where their independence are, they're so independent. There's where, there's where it can fall apart.
And to that point, I've heard many parents, again, as a current parent of teenage children, I've heard many teenage parents say, even when you talk about the 9th grade student, not yet, wait till they're juniors, not yet, wait till they're juniors. When it comes to the choices of, do I try the alcohol, do I try I get that all the time. Not yet, wait till they're juniors. So it's a good
These were the
point.
grades that DPH
Yep.
highly, highly suggested. I personally would have done 8 and 10. For that very reason. I think the 8th graders at Pierce start to feel their oats, and I think 10th graders start to get really comfortable. I would have picked those. However, we did pick 7 and 9, and we've got a baseline. If we had a windfall of money, I'd probably do 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. But,
Yeah.
keep the heat.
Right,
Keep
right.
the heat on them. Nobody's
Right.
going to ask them these questions, and if you lie, I can smell it. I'm just like that mother.
I'm going to get T-shirts like smell it.
I can smell it.
We can sell them and we can
But
fund them.
kudos to that mother, really
Yes.
and truly, kudos, that child has a healthy respect for not lying and saying, I can't go home and lie because my mother will know, and that is a great motivator.
Not a bad thing indeed.
It is.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Or
Thank you, everyone.
I just want to finish by saying, it sounds like you did everything, not just right, but as I don't know, as right as you could. And the product that you crafted and the situation down to game planning out the different answers, setting up the confidential areas and small details that have a big effect, and the follow-up with the students. And as you know, sometimes you can given enough time, you can sort of you push students into making the right decision if somebody's making bad decisions about talking to somebody and trying to figure that
That was the goal,
out.
and I think we did
Yeah.
achieve it.
So, thank you very much.
It was a great team.
Thank you very much.
May I ask
Superintendent,
one
yes.
other thing before Margaret leaves? Well, it will bring Dr. Craighead back. It's in her future, but for everyone, and Dr. Donahue's future, would you just for 1 minute explain the fifth grade talks that are happening this week? For
Oh,
the viewing
sure.
public.
I've already heard about that.
But
I know
I
what the
think
fifth
that,
graders talk.
I think it's important for the viewing public to know, when you hear about school nurses, what do school nurses do?
Yeah.
And Margaret, would you for a moment
don't
and
they do?
just
Sure.
mention what this month
There
is?
was a change this year. There was a strong desire to have co-ed classes. And
No,
we've
you have to
got-
preface what we're talking about, I'm sorry, for the viewing public.
Oh, I'm sorry. In our grade fives across the town, we have one class only on growth and development. It's approximately an hour, and up until this year, they were separate. They were segregated, girls and boys. So the decision was made with parent input and shown videos and all that the kids see, we had a parent night where well over 100 parents came. And we decided we're going to combine this. We're going to take the mystery out. We're going to reduce it to where we're going to be able to talk. It's not a whisper. It's not a secret.
Right.
This is part of growing up. So we had our first class last Thursday at the Glover School. There were 2 classes because the classes are so big. And our school physician, Dr. Guglietta, and myself did one class. And Noel Bigu and Maureen LeBlanc, the nurse at the Glover, did a second class. We were back to back, actually, running the same videos and things simultaneously. So it's actually great fun. And the class that I was in, the students were young, and their interest is on their acne and when am I going to grow, and just really age-appropriate stuff, but probably a lot of, not the youngest of a family of 5, having done it all those years. So it's very different if you're the youngest of a family
Yes.
of 5, when you're the oldest of a family of 2 or 3,
Yeah.
or an only child.
Yeah.
So it was great fun, and tomorrow we're doing it at the Cunningham School, and the week after at the Tucker, and the week after that at the Collycotts. But they were so wonderful and so well behaved and so inquisitive in questions. We make them write their questions so that you don't have a free-for-all of yelling in a classroom. So then you could screen out anything that was inappropriate. We tell them right up front, only what's in the video are we going to discuss. So if you're going to try and first of all, there's nothing you're going to ask me you're going to shock me about, so forget it. But if there's a question that comes to that, and I pick them up, so I have an idea of whose the questions are. So if there's something burning, or I say, if we don't answer your question, and you really want to answer it, we'll figure out how to get you. Come see me, or go see Mrs. LeBlanc, and whatever. So when I told Maureen I had 2 questions she had to follow up on down there, I could tell there was not a good. So I was afraid what I was going to tell her, but I was just joking. I was just teasing. But it kind of takes everybody down. But it worked out well. It worked out really well. Again, the parents saw it, and we've not heard anything from any parent that was upset about anything that was discussed, or, and they can opt out. Parents can opt out their children, and they would go and have a party somewhere, we would make it fun to opt out, not that they, so, but no one did, and I was told no one is opting out on tomorrow's program at the Cunningham as well, so.
So when you wonder
Again,
what a
I
school
think
nurse
parents-
does.
I think parents are more
There's a book in there
willing
somewhere.
to talk about subjects that were not easily talked about, because they understand there's a value there. And it's a long time in coming, but I think it's arrived, and I think that we do a good job in trying to support the kids, starting young and all the way through.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you
And
so much.
Thank you.
Very much.
Have a good
Thanks,
night.
yeah.
Have fun
So
tomorrow.
a day in the life of a school
There's a
nurse.
book in there somewhere.
I know there
There
is.
should
There's
be
a
like,
book in
no,
there.
there should be like an among school children type book about school nurses.
There
There should
would
be.
be so true.
So if anyone wants to
Margaret, you
write
hear
it,
that?
I'm sure that would be
Thank you,
great.
Margaret.
In your retirement, you can do that.
She could do it and live a nice, on the, that's what my publishing hat, live off the royalties.
In your packet tonight, kudos to Principal Jett, who picked up a correction in our next year's school calendar. And I ask you briefly to, is it in here?
Yeah, it's in here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
To revoke that calendar.
Here it is.
There was a correction on a half PD day. Just like, are you a school choice district? We get a call a week from somebody making next year's flight reservations for their vacations or their long weekends. So I would ask you, and we'll issue that tomorrow in the blast, as an amended, revised as of today,
All right.
adding a comma.
So I'll move approval of the revised 2018-2019 schedule.
Second.
And can you just, do you know which day it was?
Yeah, it's
Just
the
so we're.
20th.
Yes,
There's
on
a
the cover
note attached.
sheet.
Oh, thank you.
The
Yep.
notice that March 27th
27th.
is actually an MCAS testing day, so we changed it to
It's here. It's
March
just
20th.
March 20th. Thank you.
Thank you. You know what, we'll highlight that in this color too when we put it out tomorrow. And very briefly,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous? Thank you.
thank you. Today, I have an email written to the MFE and to the school committee saying this MFE in the fall, the Monster Dash celebration, the social event of the year, and this Teacher of the Year today is an extraordinary day in the Milton Public Schools. So very briefly, the MFE, administrators, individuals were available, and we called the families of the teachers. We go, and Margaret Eberhardt's smiling because she's been part of this entourage, and we started at Milton High School. And in the lobby of Milton High School, we must have had 25 teachers and administrators, 3 or 4 classes. We call the teacher down, they have no idea, and Jennifer Troy was our librarian at Milton High School, was the Teacher of the Year. I said, I haven't seen high school teachers cry or administrators cry. It was a beautiful, beautiful moment. We then left the high school, and we went to the Tucker School. And at the Tucker, we went into the gymnasium and the preschool in grade 3, and the whole group was in there with flowers and balloons and cake and ice cream, and in came Adjustment Counselor Ramsey Cadet, who I think still is in shock, giggling that he was voted the Teacher of the Year. I tell the students that there are thousands of applicants, and the MFE reads them, and they choose the Teacher of the Year. It was unbelievable. We left there, and we went to the Glover, and all the 5th grades were lining up on the playground because, in the 5th grade, all the teachers, the children are mixed. So Liz Cariomenos was recognized. They brought her own 2 children down from lower grade. She's still crying as we left her in shock with her cake, her flowers, her balloons, and it's really poignant. The MFE reads the comments from the nominations, and next Wednesday, there's an event in the Milton High School auditorium where the families come and each of the teachers gives a speech. I think it puts them in paralysis starting tonight, thinking about those speeches for next Wednesday night. Very poignant. We then left and went to the Collecock Cunningham, where the fun really began here.
So at the Collycott, we went into the cafeteria, and I appreciate you indulging me, in the kindergarten as we're all eating. And usually I say, how many went to the MFE Monster Dash? Couldn't work on that crowd, they're kindergartners. Did your parents, oh, that's not gonna work about celebration. So here I am interrupting their lunch, telling them that their beloved kindergarten teacher, Sam Ballard, was the teacher of the year. So they were cheering, and I'm not exactly sure they knew what was happening, but she got, and then Sam Ballard had more family there than you'd have at a holiday dinner. And so that was very, very poignant. So then we go to the Collycott, and wonderful Amy Hawkins, who is a OT? Cunningham, OT? Occupational therapist, her husband and 2 children, so we had to wait a few minutes, and she was recognized, and it was very poignant, in a 3rd grade classroom, and a young boy who she's taught to use the laptop was there, and he explained to the students before she arrived how she's helped him. It was an amazing day. So then, in the name of Dr. Mary Grass O'Neill, who was a superintendent in Milton, whose 2 sons went to the Cunningham, we give a leadership award. And again, we have nothing to do with who was awarded. These are all nominated to MFE. And it was Jonathan Redden. So Jonathan Redden had no idea. So we went into the cafeteria with the 3rd graders, and everyone was very happy, cheering. And this is really sweet. I told Dr. Craighead, Jonathan Redden said to me, my first class is the 5th grade, and they're out in the playground. Would you do this again? I said, what? He said, would you all come out to the playground and redo this? I said, you mean read the remarks about you? Bring the balloons and the cake and the, yes, with the MFE and the trail. Oh, all right. I'll get a bullhorn. I said, great, great. So we went out, and he had the 5th grade all come in front of him. And the last line on the remarks about Jonathan Redden read, he's a gentle giant. And to see him, in other places, we have to crowd the children for the pictures, and I'm sending you pictures tonight, and you'll see pictures in tomorrow's blast. Those 5th graders, it was, I don't know, like sheep following the herd. It was very, very poignant, but nobody's ever said, I have another group of children I'd like you to do this in front of. So we went outside, and it was beautiful. And tomorrow morning, we're going to Pierce School to surprise a teacher. But on behalf of the Milton Public Schools and the independence of the MFE, we couldn't do it as well as they do it. Reading those nominations, I think they said they got over 200 to 300 nominations. They go with flowers and balloons, and then they give certificates. I have to tell you, and it speaks to the nature of teachers, because I am a teacher. The other teachers are just as happy for theirs. Maura was there today. Your secretary, Maura Downs, was as happy as if she was being recognized. She tailed on to the award ceremony. Unbelievable day. To end Teacher Appreciation Week, you thought it was last week, but it's going into this week. I want you to join me. Jessica Jabo, a very talented math and computer science teacher at Milton High, has been selected as one of the 5 finalists for the 2018 Massachusetts STEM Teacher of the Year. Wow. The STEM Teacher of the Year program was begun in 2012 and is designed to honor teachers who show a commitment to excellence in STEM education. They each are awarded a $1,000 certificate from Raytheon, and we'll have more facts about that. But not to be outdone, congratulations also to Milton High School science teacher Kara Ufru, who has been selected as a finalist for the Presidential Award for Excellence in Teaching of Math and Science. The nation's highest honor for teachers in those 2 disciplines. Wonderful. Both finalists, more steps to follow, but they exemplify their profession and all of the teachers in the Milton Public Schools. So I would say that was some ending to Teacher Appreciation Week, and every day. We have amazing children, and we have amazing teachers and parents, as all of you are, that support these teachers in this school district. So it was a wonderful day. Briefly, on May 24th, here we go, the music awards dinner in the cafeteria and auditorium here, not to be outdone by the next Tuesday, the senior awards night in the auditorium at 7 o'clock, follow the next night. You people have a busy schedule for, on the 30th, Wednesday the 30th, the Boosters Banquet in the Copeland Fieldhouse, leading up to graduation. At your next meeting, I'll bring per member Varela, the PS players, who will give you a little entree, as member Varela reminds me, make sure they sing and dance, Singing in the Rain. I'll bring to your next meeting in anticipation. Circle your calendars for the 7th, the 8th, or the afternoon, or the 9th for the PS players. And then coming up, I have to recognize Charlene Roach. She put such detail as if she was a professional party planner on behalf of all of us and you. She sent out the invitations to your retirees. I have to tell you, you almost get 100% return rate on these retirees appreciating this recognition reception you have before your meeting on June 6th. And then your invitation is going out to every identified volunteer in the Milton Public Schools for the June 13th little reception before your school committee meeting. So, thank you.
Can I,
Umbrella.
I didn't know if you should just, I mean, again, from the viewing public, but, tomorrow night, you're having, this is Substance Coalition meeting at the library, and one of our presidents, students, is the primary speaker.
I wish I brought that.
Yeah, so I just
And
want
it's
to.
been moved, good thing you mentioned
Yeah.
it. Such a crowd, it's going to be here in the auditorium.
Oh, it is,
Oh, good.
okay, so it was supposed to be library, but Ariel Solomon, who's a graduating senior,
Thank you
and
for
a member
bringing-
of Students Against Destructive Decisions, is going to be the noted speaker, and it's talking about, I believe, depression, is it not? And, to have like a discussion about what teens go
Thank you
through,
for
and,
bringing that.
I just, with Margaret being here about why people are turning to these things, so, and I just know that a lot of those meetings I've gone to, from the surveys, that group's done a lot of good work, so I'm going to try to make it, but I think it's a great thing that she's
Yeah.
brave enough to come up and lead that discussion. I believe it's at
They sent us 2 invitations.
6 or
Maura,
7,
could
yeah.
you check that for us? I believe it's tomorrow night
Yeah,
at the
tomorrow
Milton
night.
High
I didn't know,
School
it's, so
auditorium.
it's been moved to the.
It's been moved
Okay.
because they expect
Yeah.
a crowd.
Okay, great.
Which is, thank you for bringing that up. And in closing, girls softball will host Brookline tonight at 8 o'clock as part of their Milton Youth Softball Night. They will also play Stoughton next week at 7 o'clock on Wednesday, the 23rd. For senior night, they need 4 more wins to get into the tournament, first time in 9 years. Baseball needs 3 more wins to make the tournament as they travel to Brookline today to start their final stretch of the season. Girls lacrosse needs 2 more wins to qualify. Do you think these tournaments are important here? As they host Oliver Ames next Thursday, the 24th at 6:30 for their senior night. And Ryan Madden writes, "It has been a great spring season so far, but it is winding down. That just means we are closer to tournament." So a lot of enthusiasm around win, lose, or draw around the sports and athletics at Milton High.
And I just want to make one more note on Singing in the Rain, that that they may come to visit us. That I have to say that I have several of my middle school TAP students are in Singing in the Rain at the beginning of the year. It's kind of a bigger class, and TAP is not sometimes as popular nowadays as hip-hop and contemporary, like you see in all the dance shows. And so I always go around and say, how long have you taken TAP, or why did you choose? And several of those students said, well, I plan on auditioning for Singing in the Rain at Pierce Middle School, so I need to learn how to become a better tap dancer, and that is why I'm here. So I think that shows you the popularity of the program, that
Isn't
people
that
are,
the
going to
success
take
of
tap.
it?
Yeah.
Which I thought was great.
Thank you.
I said, I'll do my best to make Mr. D proud.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll look forward to seeing them.
Hope they're going to tap.
They might kill themselves on this floor tap dancing on this, but we'll see.
All right, so I think we're on to Chair A. So I'm going to move that Milton not be a school choice district for the FY19 school year, following our superintendent's advice. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. Do we have any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous, thank you very much. June presentation dates. So these were the presentations. Last year it was all about the budget and the override and what could and might and might not happen. This year it's going to be about the budget as well, but a lot heavier focus on our space issues and the other sort of burgeoning issues. So it looks like there are some suggested dates from the administration.
Well, to your request, Charlene Roach made this June calendar.
Okay.
So you'll be able to see the open nights
That's pretty funny.
in June.
Yeah, okay.
So Sunday, the 10th.
That's pretty funny.
Wow.
Dr. Craighead wants to say something.
Yes, Dr. Kagan, I'm sorry.
I would just like to throw out there that given this month and next month, it's all really tight, and we have lots of obligations. I'm not sure we can do multiple presentations. It just looks like it's going to be overwhelming and too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know.
Well, and this sort of dovetails into what I was going to say or I think I put it under Chair C, our summer retreat conversation. There was some discussion about moving that early, as in into June. So while we're looking at the calendar, we can look at the calendar for those two reasons.
All right, well, this is what I'm going to say. I know that, and this is head, because I'm away in DC from the 20th to the 22nd. But if we did a one night only, I didn't know if Monday night, the 11th, I know there's an MFE board meeting, but I don't think that would dovetail with some or most of us being there. And, you know, it's a Monday night, maybe getting parents out or just having it, just do one night at the high school if we can. And I guess an auditorium in the library, to invite people. You know, here's my thing, like, I do get that, I'm with you guys and I feel strapped like everybody else, but I just do think it's still important to offer the day and to have it, and then, and sort of leave it like that, because then everyone's gonna go away for the summer and we're not gonna be able to revisit even any potential input or concerns or anything, so that when we meet over the summer and then we start, even though we do meet in the summer, and I know the selectmen meet in the summer and things can happen, but stuff isn't really gonna get executed to the fall, that we can just bring, stuff to the table. I don't know.
I don't know, on the 4th, you have PTO presidents. I don't know how full your agenda is there. I don't want to hijack your PTO presidents meeting, but we would be assured of covering the full, if we did hijack at least a portion of that meeting, we'd be assured of covering at least the full spectrum of our different grade levels.
You mean,
That sounds like a good idea.
wait, so
That's Mary's meeting, yeah?
I know it's,
Sorry, I'm a little confused.
so instead of having
okay.
that meeting, having them come to that instead?
or at least having them for half an hour,
Sure, and
half
you
an
have
hour.
the current and you have the current, outgoing, the ones that are staying, the outgoing, and next year's PTO president, so you have a captive audience.
Yeah, but I again, I know I'm a stickler on this, but I want it open so that other parents who are big on the enrollment.
No, I agree completely.
Yeah.
I'm saying if we do it concurrent, we can at least have the PTO presidents who are scheduled, well, we can ask the PTO
Yeah.
presidents to move their meeting back 15 or 20 minutes, schedule it for that night,
Okay,
and we're assured of at least having them who have their own constituencies
right.
at their own
And maybe they can pull
schools.
more people.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
And then they can go conclude their meeting, and we can carry on in the auditorium
Yeah, okay,
with anybody
that's
else
good.
who's there. So,
And if I might, not to hijack your meeting, but one of our agenda items for that night was Ada Rosemarin presenting the strategic plan. So you have an audience there, and it's another area of interest after the budget.
oh, good, okay. So that would be a busy night, but it would be an effective night.
All right. So we're saying the 4th of June?
Yeah.
I'm gonna be tired, but okay.
It's okay, I'm taking the day off,
Okay.
so I can
very
roll out of bed and
long
show up
couple
here
of
at
days.
6. Yeah.
All right, and we can talk about how to arrange the timing of that, whether we want to
Like have them
start
start
at
at 6?
Yeah, or have us start at 6
Or
and,
vice
or
versa,
vice
yeah.
versa.
Okay,
What to do there.
okay.
All right.
Okay.
So segueing into our summer strategic planning goals meeting, so just as you're out of town the
The 20th.
second half of that week, the 20th through, so I'm out of town the subsequent week, the 25th through the 29th.
Okay.
So if we want to do it if we want to have our big meeting in June where we do goal setting, we'd have to do it before then. And we have to start thinking about a facilitator and whether we want a different facilitator or the same facilitator, if anyone has suggestions for facilitator.
Can I ask a question? Is
Sure.
anyone, in the past, I know that we're looking at nights and stuff, but is anyone opposed to like just doing a block of time, like on a Saturday, either like morning or afternoon, to get it out of the way? As opposed to like Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night? I don't know, I'm just thinking of that, but I don't know if that's not workable.
I'm not opposed to that.
So, yeah, a couple years ago, we did it on a Saturday.
Didn't we? I
Yeah.
thought so, yeah.
Yeah, and then it has traditionally been much more in the depths of summer, and
Yeah.
the feeling was rather, people are out of town and et cetera, and it was easier to schedule during the week in July and August. So if we're going to do it in June, maybe we can find some time on one of the weekends.
Yeah, I don't know if like either the 16th or the 23rd. I mean, I'm back on the 22nd, but I know you say you're on the 25th. I
I
don't know
think
if,
the Milton Music Festival is on the 23rd,
Oh,
so it
okay.
wouldn't be a good day.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we should add that to the calendar.
Absolutely, Ms.
You're
Eberhard.
absolutely right. That was a fun presentation we did at town meeting. Linda Lee and Brian.
All right, so maybe the 16th, 17th,
One day.
that weekend? People go
Mhm.
home and check your schedules, and
Mhm.
if we have significant conflicts, then that's the way it is.
Father's Day, 17th.
What's that?
What day is Father's Day?
17th.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, then, I don't know, maybe, yeah. And Betty, what time is that music festival?
All day, 2 days in a row.
Does it start like in the morning?
Yeah.
It's all day. Literally all day.
Well, I won't be here on the 23rd.
Yeah,
I'll
are
be
you
on
there?
there,
Okay, okay.
Literally, it's all day. Both days.
And when you're gone on the 25th, you're gone all the way through the weekend?
Yeah, I come back on the 30th,
Yeah, okay.
so I'll be back on the 1st. but-
Yeah, okay.
I won't be here that week either, any of it.
So,
So I don't know, if that really doesn't look like it's gonna happen, then maybe we should pick some dates in July now to try to get something on the docket for July. If we have to push it to mid-July or whatever, then we can do it,
What,
but,
for the retreat?
yeah.
yeah.
I thought we were just putting in the 16th and 17th
Yeah.
as possibilities.
It's 17th's Father's Day.
Oh, right, okay.
So it's the 16th or nothing.
Okay, so the 16th, does anybody sitting here have a conflict that you know of at this point?
Let me just check my Google Calendar.
Wait, what did we just say, the 16th? Sorry, I got distracted by.
I have something that day. I don't think it's an all-day commitment, but I have something that day.
Yeah, the only thing, I mean, it's fine, but the NSYNC mini recitals are here that whole day. I mean, I can take, if we do go 2 hours or 3 hours, I mean, I could maybe work, and I don't have to be at all of them, but, I mean, we can still meet over here, but that's a pretty hectic day that
There'll be no
NSYNC
parking that day.
There'll be no parking that day. NSYNC starts their rehearsals, their recitals, I think, at 9 or 10 in the morning, and they're here until 6 or 7 at night.
When did we have the retreat last year? I don't remember the dates.
Isn't it August?
We had it.
No.
We had it in early July.
Oh,
It was like the
okay.
second week of July, or first. It was after the 4th of July, I think,
Okay.
but shortly thereafter. So let's
You're gonna have to go.
go home
Right.
and discuss with our
do you want to look at the 16th and then look at like some early July dates
Yeah,
too?
let's
and
do
Come
that.
back with that for
So-
the next meeting?
Yep.
Go
Does that
home
sound
and
good? Okay.
look at your schedules in depth, think about the 16th, and then if that doesn't work, start to look at July
Okay.
and put together some dates.
Yeah, just so you know, I'm out that 4th of July week as well, the first week in
Okay.
July.
And I'm on vacation the 2nd. So that's why I wanted to do June.
Exactly.
And
I
then
know.
said someone's not going to be out the 3rd, and then
June
we're going to
makes
be in
more
August.
sense,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's why I thought June made more sense, so.
Well, it does.
What about Friday the 15th? What about like a Friday night gig? I know, do we have anything
Sure.
on the 15th?
Oh, right, we could do that.
Let's look at our
Like we
schedules for
could
the
do
next
a
one.
4 to 8?
I have family
I won't
movie
be there
night.
Friday night.
I'm just kidding.
You're not here.
I can.
Okay.
All right,
You all
so,
can have it without me. No,
so,
Fine by me.
so we'll go home and look at our schedules,
All
but
right.
it's
Okay.
that weekend or bust basically for June,
Yeah.
because we're not doing the day before graduation.
Mhm.
Probably not going to do the Friday before graduation.
The 15th might be an issue for, might be a conflict for Ada.
Friday night.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
Friday, yep,
Friday
yep,
night.
yep.
Okay. So it goes.
Okay.
What about the 10th of June? That's Sunday.
Sunday the 10th.
I won't be here.
Okay.
Cheryl's getting married that day.
Okay. Okay.
All right. So I'll throw out Wednesday. There's Wednesday the 20th, which is not a.
No, Sheila's away
Oh,
then.
that's right. You're out. You're out of town that day.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
All right, we'll pick a, but you know what we should do for next year? I know it's right, but we should pick a date in
Now.
September.
Yeah.
Yes, now,
For
for next year's.
June of 2019.
Seriously, and
Maybe,
block
but
it
you-
out.
Right, you can do that, but then if you have new school committee members,
They might
true.
not be able to make it, yeah.
just saying.
Well, we do the best we can, so, you're right, you're right, you're right.
Um,
At least block it off, and then if,
Just saying.
yeah, that person's not there. Yeah.
So, and the other alternative is our first July meeting that we're scheduled for, whatever that Wednesday is.
Do we have meetings already scheduled for the summer?
That's the 11th, I
No.
guess, right? 'Cause
We can
July
think
4th,
about doing it,
a long
using
day.
our regularly scheduled meeting to do it.
Okay,
Um,
maybe that's still gonna be the best thing, maybe.
And
Yeah.
depending on how much actual business we have.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good.
Okay. So Wilson Kindle school update. So at our last meeting, there was a question if there was any progress, and the answer was none to date. Since that meeting, I believe the administration reached out to the school, and has there been any?
No.
No. Okay. All right. So at this point, it's becoming difficult to envision how we're going to move through the application process before September. So why don't we craft a letter explaining that to them and see where that brings us?
Can I ask a question on that? Are they still planning to open in September? Can they? What happens if they do, when we
well-
don't go through the process? Like,
By the DESI,
Yeah.
by the DESI regulations, we would have to approve the curriculum. We've asked twice in form of an email, and we have no curriculum to approve.
right, but my question is, like, if DESI and state of Massachusetts mandates us to do this, and, we don't get the materials to do what we're supposed to do, and the private school still opens, I mean, does DESI come knocking on their door and close them down? Like, what happened? Does anyone have any experience in this in other towns or anything like that?
I'll investigate it for your next meeting.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, you know what I mean?
At a minimum, I would assume that the children are considered truant.
Okay.
But,
Yeah, okay.
and all the associated ramifications of that, for the children over 6.
Yeah,
So,
good point. Yeah.
so on that note, Finance Subcommittee.
Okay, for tonight, you have in your folders or your packets the third quarter report for fiscal year 18. I hope you all had some time to look this over, and we need to vote to accept this tonight. I'll be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any. Okay, I'm going to make a motion to approve the third quarter report.
I'll second.
Thank you, Betty. All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. And so ends the Finance Subcommittee report.
All right. Are we on to policy?
Yes.
All right, so we're on to policy. We have 3 policies this evening because we removed one. The first policy is policy GB, the Equal Employment Opportunity Policy. If you recall, the change to this policy was simply the addition of wording with regards to pregnancy and its protected status and the change in the law in the Commonwealth. It's no longer redlined here, so this is the way the policy looks now, but it's at the very end here, the last sentence.
So I'll move approval of the policy,
Okay?
policy GB.
Second?
Are there any additional questions about the Equal Employment Opportunity Policy, policy GB? Okay. All in favor of this policy change? Excellent. Good. That's wonderful. Okay. The next policy we have is policy IJNDC, the Empowered Digital Use Policy. If you recall, this policy is a new policy, and it was written as we roll out our Bring Your Own Device initiative, one-to-one device initiative at the high school. And if you recall, it's just a general, very general policy with regard to being a good citizen with the use of digital use in a school system. This is our second reading of this policy. I'm going to make a motion to approve policy IJNDC, the Empowered Digital Use Policy of the Milton Public Schools.
Second.
Is there any conversation about this policy?
I just want to say that I think it, but every time I read it, I think it's great, but I think it reminds me of like something that would be on a, early ed classroom. It's be empowered, be courteous, be smart and safe, be careful and
I agree
gentle.
100%.
It's like something all the rules you ever learned you need to know in kindergarten type thing, so.
It has a nice personality.
It does, it does, it does.
All in favor of our Empowered Digital Use Policy?
Aye.
All right, then we have a unanimous use. Okay. The last policy before us this evening is policy IJND, which is the Access to Digital Resources Policy. If you recall, this is an important policy that parents need to be aware of, and it is in the handbooks and will be available to them. And it's about the rights of students and staff about access to digital resources in the district.
I'll move approval.
Okay.
A second?
Is there any question about this policy?
I don't have a question, but can you just reiterate, Margaret, that this is, besides being in the handbook, that it's also something that our technology director is also going
Yep.
to?
So, that's right, A.J. Milton will be addressing all of our digital policies and the digital citizenship curriculum that he's working on with other members, with a large contingency of community members and employees of the Milton Public Schools at an informational evening in the fall. And he's also been reaching out to PTOs at each of the individual schools, just to bring parents up to speed about the digital world. Because I don't think, as we discussed previously, that you're leaving that so-called digital footprint from the time you're little now. So it's important for parents to just be aware of those things and to be informed so they can inform their children, just like we had conversations about substance abuse and making good choices. This falls in a different realm of making good choices. So,
Exactly.
so all in favor of the IJND policy?
Aye.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, everyone on policy, and to AJ and to Charlene, who's such an enormous help with policy. And we will bring back we have to review GCF one more time at our next policy meeting, and then we will bring it back for a second reading. I'm sorry, well, I guess it would be a first reading. We were going to make some changes to it. That's it.
All right. I'm going to make an omnibus motion to approve
Great.
the minutes of April 4 and May 2, 2018.
Wow. We are doing great with
I'll
the
second.
minutes.
Yes, we are. Thank you to Ms. Downs, who's
Thank you,
kept us
Mark.
up to date.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any edits or changes?
Looks good.
Give you a few minutes to. All right. All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, so under old business, I would like to extend my thanks to town meeting for approving our budget for the next fiscal year. I'd like to extend my thanks to the administration for all of their hard work and to Finance Subcommittee for all of their hard work. I think the way things unfolded at town meeting was a direct result of all the hard work that had gone on beforehand, and I would like to thank everybody for that. We are grateful to the support of the warrant committee and the selectmen and the town in general for the schools. And I don't have any other old business. I don't know if anyone does. Nope. Citizen Speak topic response. I don't have anything. For next meeting agenda items, so we'll have our 5-year curriculum discussion. We'll have class rank. We'll have our scheduled subcommittees and advisory committees, including transportation. I think that, and the Pierce players.
I believe Health and Wellness will report out that one.
Good.
Transportation.
Yep.
Policy.
Good.
When's our next meeting?
So I've been toying with the idea of thinking about starting our meetings with a brief public hearing regarding our space issues. If there are members of the community who would like to come and engage us in a dialogue on it, as opposed to citizens speak, where we are restrained from conversing with the people who come. So I may start doing that ahead of the next few meetings, so that we can have a little back and forth with interested community members who want to come and talk about us.
So can
talk
I
with us.
ask
Yeah.
Dr. Donahue, would you have, I think that, that's a great idea, but would you promote that like through the superintendent's blast and through maybe, I'm just saying it's a busy
Yep.
time of year for people to know that they can actually come, and some people know that, that a lot of people, especially newer parents, aren't even really aware of Citizen Speak per se, and I just didn't know how we could communicate that effectively, that people who do have concerns would actually maybe make the time to come and speak.
I think that's a great idea. Our next agenda, the second, looks pretty heavy, so it may be prudent to start the subsequent week
Okay.
to give people a little ramp up.
Yep.
It gets us past graduation. But yes, I think publicizing it so that we get community members coming in and talking to us, and we can talk to them about
Okay.
the space issue for
It's my
for
calendar, I didn't
a
add
brief
it.
period of time.
Yes.
I don't want it to.
Yeah, we can say, you can put a time limit on
Yeah.
it, so it doesn't go on too long,
Yeah.
yeah, great.
So we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
All right.
May I ask, can you remind me again, because the dates are all just a blur in my brain. When are we having our next school committee meeting?
So our next school committee meeting is in June.
That's what I thought, okay.
Yeah,
For a
June
second, I
6th.
thought I was, okay, June
Yep.
6th. Wow.
With your retiree reception before it.
Beforehand.
And then the
Okay.
13th with your volunteer reception before it.
Right, all right, so it is June then,
Yep.
okay.
Okay.
No, I was just thinking for health and wellness, but we'll already have had our last meeting, that's great.
So you're thinking about doing that open hearing on space needs on the 13th?
Yes, that's what I'm thinking
That'd be
about.
good,
And depending on the
Because that'd be
response,
after this.
it may
Yeah.
be something that we do, for every other meeting.
Okay.
You know, like our
that's
second meeting of the month, we would have a set us, you know, try and set aside a few minutes beforehand so community members can come and we can talk, we can dialogue
Okay.
about it, because, you know, it's as uncomfortable as citizen speak is, because it's very formal and stilted, and we are being spoken at, and and can't respond as per our policies. I think this issue, there's a lot of dialogue that, or at least an opportunity for dialogue, that would be beneficial.
Okay.
And we'll see how it goes a few
Yeah.
times, and
Yeah.
if it's positive, that's great, and if nobody shows up, maybe we'll try publicizing a little more, and then, you know, see what happens.
Okay.
Excellent idea.
Yeah, so I would start with the meeting on the 13th. Again, because our meeting on the 6th, the agenda looks very heavy for that meeting. And we will have an executive session there to approve minutes, among other things, so there'll be packets for you to pick up with executive session minutes.
For the
ahead
June
of the
13th meeting?
The June 6th meeting.
June
ahead of the
6th
June 6th
meeting.
meeting.
Okay. Great. So that would be great if we have that, because then if we do the thing on June 4th about the budget and the space,
Yeah.
then that
Maybe
open
it'll
meeting on the
stop
13th.
percolating
that would-
things.
Yeah,
People
that'd be
can
great.
come. Yeah.
Right.
And I would just like to give another shout out, as they say, for the Teacher of the Year recognition ceremony, which is the 23rd of May, next Wednesday evening, here at the high school. The 6 for 7 is the reception. There's food, delicious food. Come with your children. As we said at the foundation meeting, feed your children. And then stay for the ceremonies, which are absolutely hysterically fun and weepy and just all around terrific night. Really, as kids bring signs, parents are here, everyone is very moved. You really, if you can
Yeah.
come as a community member, you should really come.
I get a lot of, it's very interesting seeing how the teachers and the educators react, having had a few weeks to compose themselves and to reflect on it. There's a lot of interesting
And yes,
comments.
I love every, last year when I think it was last year when Bernadette Butler
Yeah.
won. And she talked about that she had just bought her parents' home, and she had, when she was a little kid, painted the call to office button on the wall,
down in
and it
the
was still there.
basement.
And she said, "I apologize for that, but I'm never getting rid of the button."
Yeah.
And I just thought, that, and then Mr. Cleary with his very funny.
Oh,
Yep.
gosh, his stand-up
speech.
routine,
Oh,
as
that
I
was
would say.
hilarious.
So yeah, you should come. You don't want to miss it, because
Yeah.
it's really a great
Good
night.
speeches.
Yeah, really great.
If I might.
Please.
As long as the MFE's been in existence, Margaret Eberhardt, bringing that up, smiling, Margaret Eberhardt is your representative to the MFE, and she well
past
represents the Milton School Committee, and I
really, but-
historically go to every meeting. A bystander, you might find it hard. I just sit there and I speak when I'm spoken to, and, but it's very informative.
Yeah.
But you have been well represented, and if I couldn't go to a meeting, Margaret's there. She brings back the information, and it is valuable because there are questions about needs and with grants and spending on celebration. So Margaret, on behalf of the district, I felt like every teacher and student was well represented by you at the MFE, and I know the MFE is part of your heart.
It much certainly.
And you smile,
Big
I
part of
just
my heart.
watched you, and
Big
you
part of my
smiled
heart.
when you started in about the teacher, just like you were one of those teachers being recognized
It's
next
my
week.
favorite, one of my favorite nights, besides Monster
But you thought
Dash.
you were Jonathan Redden, and you
I
wanted to.
really do love to hear the teachers. My favorite part is when they all talk about, this is going to upset you now, but when they, like, you were their teacher,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
you were their principal, and they used to go home and pretend they were you, and they would
Yeah,
walk around the
like
house in their
Bernadette.
shoes, and I
Yeah.
just think that that's that's one of my favorite things, so.
Or their
that's
first stories about interviewing with you, like for the district, things like that.
Voluntold,
Yeah,
you can do it.
Yeah.
Let me know by Monday. Yep.
On behalf of the district, we're well represented with Margaret at the meetings.
It's been a pleasure
Yes, we
and
are.
an honor.
Citizens speak. There's nobody here, so I'll move to adjourn.
Second?
All right, all in favor? Unanimous, we adjourned. Thank you very
All right,
much.
thank you.